Hey everybody, I'm Jeff McCord, CEO of Your Enneagram Coach. Welcome back to Your Enneagram Coach, the podcast. Today I am joined by our Director of Coaching, Adam Breckenridge. Dude, you are an amazing voice. You have a voice made for radio? A face made for radio. What is that?
Face.
I can't remember.
Yeah, face. It's a face made for radio. I don't know that I have a voice made for radio either, unless you are a fan of, Central Arkansas accents. If that's your thing, with a little touch of Midwest Kansas City every now and then.
Sure.
And I also have a voice. I have a voice for your radio, if that's your thing.
Oh, that's funny. Well, we're glad you're back. I'll be honest, talking about accents, having grown up in Texas and then moved to go to the University of Kansas, I worked on my accent. It was fairly deep. My family's accent's very Texas, long draws, slower pace, and I worked on it. My friends, when I went back home, was like, "Wow, you really did embrace the North, didn't you?"
Yeah.
But every once in a while it comes back, and my family is quick to remind me when it does. Whenever I say "why,"
I feel like when we are hanging out, it tends to come out. Like if we're in person, if I'm at your house, especially like if Carrie, my wife, is around, I feel like it really brings it out of you.
Dude, I don't know why, but it immediately popped in my mind when this happened. We had a Christmas party here, and you and Carrie were here, and we were taking a team picture. And Carrie grabbed my hand thinking it was yours.
Yes. Yes.
I was like, "Oh, hey, Carrie." She's so embarrassed.
Yeah, she's a type 9. So it's not like she just I feel like maybe an 8 would or a 7 maybe would have just went with it of like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna hold hands for this picture."
Sure.
She was like, "Oh, everything is disturbed. I've just disturbed the peace." It was really funny.
Oh, that's super fun. Well, hey, everybody. Well, we're here to help you see yourself with astonishing clarity so that you can break free from self-condemnation. See, that can almost came out right there. Like self-condemnation.
Condemnation. Oh, I love it.
Oh, it's like, oh man, it sounds like a preacher voice. Condemnation. So to help you break free from your Southern accents, I'm joking, to help you break free from self-condemnation, fear, and shame by knowing and experiencing the unconditional love, forgiveness, and freedom in Christ. What we've been talking about, beginning with our last episode, and what we'll be talking about for the next 3 episodes, is the topic of subtypes or instinctual subtypes. And the reason why this is important because it helps us to explain all the variances between Enneagram types. Now, there are actually 27 instinctual subtypes, which means that each Enneagram type has tons of variations. And so it helps to explain to us, one, why there's so much difference, that we are, like you heard last time, that this is like Sherwin-Williams paint colors. There's a ton of different blues. There's tons of different reds. Number 2, the instincts actually occur or come online before our type. So it explains the why behind what's pressing us. It explains our primary focus of attention that makes us different from other people of the same type. But this also, whenever we come to understand these dynamics in our own world, it helps us to understand others and why and how their Enneagram type shows up differently than ours. And so it actually gives us an opportunity, a window into curiosity and compassion towards other people. And I want you to offer everybody just a brief description of what those 3 instincts are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talked about this in the last episode as well, but the subtypes are based on 3 human instincts. The first instinct, these are all instincts for survival. We said this in the last episode. Your brain is designed to help you connect and protect so that you can survive, stay alive. And that's essentially what these instincts are trying to help you do. The first instinct is self-preservation. This is a person that walks into a room and says, do we have enough food? Do we have are we breaking the fire code in this room? Like, is everybody safe? Am I safe? And it's kind of this, how do I keep myself alive is the fundamental question.
Mm-hmm.
The second instinct is the social instinct. And this is, I'm walking into a room and I'm saying, where are my people? Where's my tribe? This is kind of a herd mentality. I need my people to survive. And then the third instinct is the one-to-one or sexual. And this person with the one-to-one instinct is going to walk into a room and say, who do I feel the strongest connection with? This is an intense drive for deep one-on-one relationships, a drive for intimacy and connection, lots of chemistry between. You're noticing the chemistry between yourself and others. And we talked about this in the last episode. We use all three of these, Jeff. So we use all three instincts. One is typically more dominant. One is typically repressed and considered kind of a blind spot. And then we have a second one there in the middle that can show up and that we can rely on in different ways. But those are the instincts.
Now, Adam, one term that we're going to be using throughout this as we go through the heart triad, type 2, 3s, and 4s, is the idea of the counter type. Explain what the idea of the counter type is.
Yeah, counter type says one of the three subtypes is always going to go against the flow of the main type. It doesn't match the stereotypical descriptions of that type. It sort of goes against the flow. And it's these types are often misunderstood. It's easy to misunderstand them. It's easy to mistype them. It can be even easy for them to mistype themselves. If you're listening to this conversation and you've been on a journey of trying to discover your type, and maybe you're hung up on a couple different types, and you're struggling to land on a type, consider the subtypes. It can really help you when it comes to finding your type. And so, but those counter types is just, hey, this is a subtype that's going against the flow of the main type. The person's still driven by the same core motivations of their type.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it shows up in a counter way. So
Cool.
That's the counter type. Yep.
Well, why don't we dive in? Let's go to type 2, Adam.
Yeah. And so I feel like I want to say this real quick, because I don't think I mentioned this, but Jeff, when those instincts come up against the strategies of your Enneagram type, that's what forms your subtype. Just to be clear on that. And so
Yes.
let's jump into the type 2. We'll talk about their subtypes. So let's start with self-preservation. This actually is the counter type for the type 2. The self-pres 2 is the counter type. So this subtype it kind of goes against the flow of the main type. It's a little bit of a me first mentality. The 2s are typically known for, serving others and, forsaking their own needs to focus on the needs of others. But the self-preservation 2 subtype of the 2 is kind of contradicts the servant heart of the 2 a little bit, or it can at least. So this subtype unconsciously persuades others to kind of give them what they want or what they need. They want others to love and value and prioritize them. They're not going to be direct or demand care. It's not like they're going to demand this out of people, but they might pursue this through their charm. They're easy to love. They're easy to connect with. They're playful. They're fun people. They're lighthearted, and so, but that can also be kind of used as a way to get the care that they need out of others. Their strengths: they're incredibly supportive, incredibly caring. They can be very attentive to others' needs. The challenge is they can be overprotective, they can be possessive, and they can be too self-focused. The social 2. This is also known as the ambitious 2. They tend to have a desire for more power. They're excellent at persuading or wooing others. These people can be great leaders. They can gain a following. Sometimes they're mistyped as a 3 or an 8 because of that. They're charming, sociable, influential. That social instinct really gives them a strong presence in a group. So when they're in the group, in society, whatever, they typically have a very strong presence. Strengths, again, leadership is a strength, charisma, they're socially adept, make great leaders. Some of the challenges of a social 2 is they can come across as manipulative. They can be overly people pleasing. And sometimes they can neglect personal boundaries. Sometimes you hear that twos will talk about how that can be a struggle for them, or people in relationship with twos can talk about that being a struggle. And sometimes that's the social two. They just want to help. They want to serve their group. They want to help in their relationships. But sometimes, if they're not careful, that instinct can show up and lead to a crossing of a boundary. So the one-to-one two. Sometimes this is called, Jeff, we see in Enneagram literature, this is called the seductive two. And I know some twos that really don't like that language. But you can remove like sexual connotations from that. What we're really saying here is that the one-to-one twos are focused on wooing those in their most intimate relationships in order to survive, in order to have their needs met. They can present themselves as irresistible. They're like magnets, and when their efforts work, they feel taken care of. They feel safe. Sometimes they can even feel a bit inflated, maybe on top of the world, on cloud nine. When their efforts don't work, they can feel extremely deflated and rejected. This is where that shame comes in. Which is, in the heart triad, that's the core underlying emotional struggle. And sometimes you really see that in one-to-one twos. If their passionate bids for connection, their intense bids for connection are met with rejection, that's a recipe. That can be a recipe for a shame storm. Their strengths are they have a super gift of empathy. Loyalty, intimacy is a strong gift that they bring. Challenges is they can be possessive, they can be overly dependent, and they can struggle with jealousy. So those are the subtypes for the type two. Is there anything that I missed, Jeff? Anything you want to add?
There's a few things that come to mind for me. In this first application of self-pres, one-to-one, and social. So notice that the focus of attention for each of these subtypes is different. And so whereas all twos have a sense to where their needs haven't been met and they want to be an instrument of meeting those needs in others. So that's true of all of them. And the fear of rejection, that they're not loved. That's why those needs weren't met. So they want to fulfill those needs for other people. But the counter type focuses on their needs. Sorry, I hit the microphone there. I can get animated with my hands whenever I talk, so I'm banging on all kinds of stuff here. But the idea of the self-pres one or the self-pres two is that they really do want their needs met. That the sort of the I forgot what instrument it is, but the accordion of need in their heart is so great that they're going to try and have that need met. You'll notice that they'll talk about they'll be more maybe financially conservative because they want to make sure that they have enough. They might be focused more on asking about food. Our daughter is a self-pres too, and so she often asks, "What are we having for dinner? What are we having to eat? What do we have to eat?" And it's like, hey, we'll be fine. You're very concerned. You're always asking us questions about it. She's not making an indictment of things. That's just what comes to mind for her. This idea of the social two, I'm going to find that in the group. I'm not going to find that for myself. Right. I'm going to somehow be the two of the group and take care of the group, the mother hen of the group. That's how I'm going to overcome this fear that I have of rejection. And then you see the one that's going all in on making sure that they don't feel rejected, which is the one-to-one. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. I was thinking about how some of these might be mistyped as other types.
Yeah.
When you look at some of these, what twos are often mistyped? What other types do they often get mistyped as?
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier the social two can be mistyped as a 3 or an 8. There's just a strong leadership presence. There's a strong charm. There's this emphasis on wooing others, mm-hmm. And persuading others, and so I know 3s possess that same characteristic. So I think that might be, in my experience, the most common mistype for a 2.
I wonder too if
how might
one-to-ones
this? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
might be mistyped as 4s
Sure.
because they're so intense, and particularly with intimate relationships that they may have, or very close relationships, they may become way more possessive, fearful of being rejected, or that person may be, they may experience some jealousy. But no, like all of these are still motivated by the same core motivations. It's just a different expression of their two-ness.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Jeff, you want to tell us about the type 3?
All righty, let's dive into type 3. So type 3, if we're going to start off with the self-pres 3. Now, the self-pres 3, it's not always this way that self-preses are the counter type for the type, but for the type 3, the self-pres is, again, like the 2, it is the counter type, and they're going to be focused on material success and security. So it's not as much of accomplishment, but it's accomplishment with material success, where they're going to find security. They want to be perfect. They want to be the perfect role model. They want to be hardworking, polished, effective, and productive. They can often be mistyped as a type 1 because they're so perfectionistic. It's very common for us to have that conversation with people. They'll present as a 1, but it's more tied to accomplishment than a moral code. Self-pres 3s are reliable, responsible, industrious, but the challenge for the subtype is that they're prone to being workaholics, and they may neglect their own personal relationships in order to fulfill this need for security and for material success. So the social 3, their focus is placed on recognition and status. So it's the group recognizing them. So it's not what I need to do to succeed, or it's not what I need to do to succeed to provide my own security, but how do I need to succeed in the group? Social 3s, they're charismatic, they're sociable, they're image conscious, they enjoy the spotlight and strive to climb the professional and social ladder. Of all the three subtypes, the social 3s are the most competitive and aggressive in pursuing success. Their desire to gain influence and to be admired. They're masters at knowing what is expected of them and can become whatever or whomever they need to be in order to win the approval and admiration. They're excellent communicators, networkers, and leaders, which is always kind of interesting, Adam, because each of these parts of us, because I think of the 3 part of my heart, I associate with being a social 3. And it's because of these very gifts. Like I'll become what you need me to become. And as a very versatile 6, I can become a lot of different things, which is a strength. But also there's this kind of repercussion that comes, this echo that comes of shame, is that I'm abandoning myself in order to find security in the group. Well, these 3s oftentimes miss that element of shame. And so they are just the image that they are in that group. And so they're excellent communicators, like I said, excellent networkers. They're excellent leaders. But the challenge is that they can be overly concerned with their own appearance, become manipulative and neglectful of their true self. They forget who they really are, and other people in relationship with them don't realize who they're relating to because they're always changing depending upon the environment that they're in. Well, the last one is the 1-to-1 3s. They don't have the same need to be in the spotlight as the social subtype, which is fascinating, isn't it? That there's a 3 that's not as tied to image, but they are tied to success and accomplishment. They tend to be more focused on personal attractiveness and creating strong connections with people. So that means that they're way more relational and attuned to people. They achieve validation and admiration from building strong bonds with their family and with their friends and colleagues. So they're way more grounded and connected with people. They're passionate. They're engaging, influential. They're still showing some of those same 3 characteristics, and they can also be emotionally turbulent and overly competitive, which can cause problems in their relationship. Why? Because they're experiencing the potential of rejection in these intimate relationships, and when those relationships aren't working out, that can start to activate some of their core fears and core longings. Adam, do you have any thoughts regarding the type 3?
Yeah, just again, you're noticing the same thing play out, is that the same core fear is there. There's a fear of being incompetent, fear of failing, fear of being exposed, fear of not appearing successful. And there's that core desire to be valued and admired and just be seen as successful, to be loved for who you are, not what all that is still at play. It's just taking different shapes. It's like you're pouring that same thing into different shaped glasses. And so with the one-to-one, you have more of the role model. With the social, you have this is more of the star. This is the front stage leader. This is the star in the group. And then with the one-to-one, you have it's very different. There's not that same need to be in the public spotlight. It's more of how am I coming across with a few people that matter most to me. It's like I'm not as concerned with public opinion, but certainly with your most intense connections or the people that matter most. There's definitely I want to appear a certain way to those people, and that's where I'm going to try to tap meaning and security, and so again, just the same core motivations playing itself out. It's not that the 3 is becoming a different type. It's all at the core level. This is just kind of like 3 different versions of a type 3. So let's talk about type 4, shall we?
Sounds good.
Type 4, the self-pres 4. This is sometimes called the tenacity subtype. And again, 3 in a row here, Jeff. We happen to be dealing with the counter type. I promise not all counter types are self-pres, but in this episode they are. So this subtype doesn't look like a typical type 4. I mentioned this in the last episode, that I have a friend who is a self-preservation 4, and self-preservation 4s still have all the darker feelings of a type 4. They exhibit all that, but they deal with their emotions privately, and they typically put on a happier face around others. They keep their emotions private. They're less dramatic. They don't wear their emotions on their sleeves in a way that you might think a 4 does. Their strengths are they're incredibly resilient, long-suffering, independent. There is a certain toughness to them. There's a certain resilience that they bring. There's an ability to bounce back. There's an ability to, there's a healthy way to smile and have joy in pain. And I feel like a self-preservation 4 can teach us something about that. That can be a strength. It can also be a survival coping mechanism, but it can be a strength. The challenges of a self-preservation 4 is they can become overly withdrawn. They can be mistrustful, and they can become a bit detached from their relationships. And you can see how that can cause some relational problems. The being withdrawn, mistrustful, and detaching themselves can cause problems in their closest relationships. The social.
I hear Beth talk a lot about self-pres 4s. Oftentimes are typed as a type 8.
Oh yeah,
they're that tenacious.
Yeah.
They're that withdrawn and that mistrustful, that they're showing some of the other qualities of an 8. But it's tied to this idea of having essential needs being met. And they're not going to be as dependent upon others, nor do they want to feel the threat of those needs not being met. And so they've adopted these kind of stronger strategies so that they don't feel the need.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and let's talk about the social 4. This is sometimes called the shame 4. This 4s are in that heart triad of that core underlying emotion of shame, and of all the 4s, the social 4 might be the most attuned to their own sense of shame. The question they're always asking is, do I belong and do I matter? And I think on some level we're all asking that question, but the social 4 is looking at their group. They're looking at society. Their instinct is social, so they're looking at the larger group, and they're asking that question of, do I belong? Do I matter? Do I fit? Am I recognized? Does anybody see me? I think it was Kurt Thompson who said everybody's born looking for somebody looking for them. And the 4 is asking that question, like, who's looking for me? The social 4 is looking at the group and saying, does anybody's face light up when they see me? And they're a little more sensitive to that question. They're a little more sensitive to social dynamics and whether they fit in or whether they don't fit in. They can come across a bit more emotionally expressive. They can feel more comfortable, more at home in their melancholy. It's interesting because they want to fit in, but they want to be different. And there's a certain melancholy that lives in that
Yeah.
tension, and they can feel very at home in that tension. Um, they're incredibly strong in empathy. I mean, a great capacity for attuning to others, and a great capacity for empathy. They're high emotional IQ, and very socially aware people. Some of the challenges, however, is that they can be overly self-conscious. They can be envious, of what others have, or what they perceive others have, and they can seek attention through their suffering and through their mood changes. Can be one of their strategies for trying to get the attention of the group. Again, but we have a lot of compassion because, again, they're just trying to find their place. They're trying to answer that question of, do I belong and do I matter? So that's the social four.
Adam, I'm reminded of a friend who he's a pastor, is a social four, and when he would preach prior to Sunday sermons, he could picture where people were in the congregation and how they might respond to his message, but it was often through the lens of shame, whether or not they're going to agree or not, and he was always attuning to their faces while preaching. Now, it's common for pastors to kind of, the people who fall asleep every Sunday, and the people who are always very engaged, and the note takers and the kids. Like the kids are just, they can be a hoot because the parents are just trying to control them and keep them quiet, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting that rather than focusing on a person or perceiving it as this kind of individual kind of the temperamental artist kind of idea that they're playing to the audience of one, the self-pres type. The social type is really taking cues from, but the interesting phenomenon is that they never think of themselves as being enough. They're always fundamentally flawed.
That's right.
Which is why the idea of shame shows up so predominantly, why the sufferer, the one who's the moodiness always comes up, because they're always thinking and fantasizing over these conversations that may or may not have even happened.
Yeah. And kind of like the self-preservation 6 is for kind of how that functions as the sort of stereotypical normal character of a 6. The social 4 is kind of the stereotypical, what you think of when you think of a type 4 is sort of the caricature. But But you have these other subtypes, and 1-to-1, or sexual subtype is the last one of the type 4, and this sometimes called the competitive 4. Again, it's just a intense focus on one-on-one relationships. It's been said that this subtype is the most competitive on the Enneagram, like more competitive than a 3. Like this is the most competitive Enneagram type. A 1-to-1 4 is the most competitive of all different shades of Enneagram types. They can use comparison to feel or appear better about themselves. We call this laddering. And I think, again, all humans do this on a conscious or subconscious level, but you walk into a room and you're essentially throwing ladders against the wall and trying to compare yourself with others and gauge, am I ahead of this person or behind this person? Where am I? And you can do it with anything. You can do it with success, finances, looks, image, talent, you name it. And so the competitive 4, the 1-to-1 4s sort of can use that laddering technique in an intense way. And so instead of feeling shame about themselves or a sense that they're lacking, their shame really expresses itself in the secondary emotion of anger. They can become angry with others for not giving them what they desire, or if they feel that they're not enough, it can come across as anger. Which sometimes, not to get back into a podcast on emotions, but emotions are certainly a part of us and they show up in each type in a different way. But anger can sometimes feel less vulnerable to reach for than shame. So the 1-to-1 4 kind of carries more anger. Because of that, they can be mistyped as a type 8 sometimes, because they're they're the angry four. Now, their strengths are they have an incredible capacity for intimacy. They have tons of emotional depth. They're creative. Um, their emotional energy can be used to create. They can be angry at, but they can also be angry for something, and it can manifest in creative energy where they're creating something beautiful, whether that's a beautiful experience or piece of art or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Challenges though with the 1-to-1 4 is they can be overly competitive and they can be given to too much to comparison, and they can be too intense in their anger, and you can see how all those challenges can cause relational difficulties for them. So, Jeff, I think that rounds out the heart triad. What do you have to add?
Yeah, just a few thoughts, kind of backing out and thinking about this as a triad. This is the heart triad, and they wrestle with, I'll use the word glory. They wrestle with their own dignity. On the flip side of that, we usually chalk that under as shame. And so one of the ways in which to discover your subtype is to think through what is your shame related to? Is it your shame related to your needs, your basic needs? Is your shame related to the group, or is it the attention of another,
That's
of the
great,
individual?
Jeff. It's a great diagnostic for helping understand your subtype.
But the problem is, like, we have this longing. I remember a pastor once telling me, we don't like glory. We don't like God's glory, and we're always trying to hide from it, and we don't like our own. And so we're going to try to find other mechanisms to be able to satisfy this longing for dignity and to be seen by others without experiencing rejection. So you find each of these subtypes have different ways of going about receiving the attention, the sense of dignity and respect that they've been given as God, having been made in the image of God, this longing for recognition and dignity, but to do it in manipulative ways.
That's right.
So maybe they forsake the group and focus on the attention of one, or they're more attentive to the group dynamics in whatever groups that they may be in, or that they're more focused on individualistic strategies in order to have that need met, versus playing the games of other people. So I'm just going to make sure that I don't experience shame. But you've probably heard us use it, and a lot of people do use it because it's such a wonderful quote, but the cave you fear holds the treasure you seek. For each of the 2s, 3s, and 4s and all of their subtypes, your shame is the invitation. That is the opportunity that you have in order to find what's actually driving you towards this. Now, there is a way of experience the shame that actually can, and I'll have Adam speak to this, there's a healthy way of dealing with shame. And so, Adam, why don't you talk about what's the invitation of shame, behind shame, and our experience of it?
Yeah. The basic shame opens the door to our need to be seen and loved. That's shame has to do with how I see me, how I see others, and how I see others seeing me. So shame is an invitation for opening myself up to be seen and loved, which is risky and vulnerable. And if you can walk through the door of your shame with the people that you want to be seen and loved by, it's a risk, but it gives us the gift of being seen and loved. It gives us the gift of being affirmed. It gives us the gift of having someone's approval. And so that's the gift of your shame. That's the invitation of your shame. It's really an invitation to be seen and loved.
Yeah. I hear some of the echoes and resemblances to attachment styles when talking about these subtypes. Because there are those that are anxiously present with others, trying to address that fundamental problem with their shame. There are some of them that are more avoidant of other relationships, that, and there's some that are kind of on the in between. They're anxiously avoidant, and so there's a lot to be discovered around for the heart triad regarding subtypes, and there sometimes you might mistype. But these are different ways, different lenses of see the diversity of the different types of 2, 3s, and 4s as it relates to these core instincts, self-pres, one-to-one, and social subtypes. Well, thanks a lot, Adam, for hanging out today and talking through types 2, 3s, and 4s and their subtypes. Is there anything remaining that you'd like to share?
No, it's just been really good to be with you, and and hang out with our audience. And I hope that everybody comes back to join us for the next couple of conversations, because when you and I come back, we're going to be talking about the instinctual subtypes within the head triad. And so types 5, 6, and 7, and we're both 6s. So it's going to get real 6y in this next episode.
That's awesome.
So I hope you'll join us for those conversations. Looking forward to it.
And hey, everybody, don't forget that the Enneagram reveals your need for Jesus, not your need to work harder. It's really fundamentally the gospel that transforms us. Thanks so much for joining us.